there's no one that dislikes these lockdowns more than I do. I actually despise them, and I take the advice off the chief medical officer and follow the guidelines. When the doc comes to you and you go for an appointment, you say you have something hurting, they tell you, do this, do that. So we'll have some positive news. I believe we're going to make some announcements later this week about going back to other levels of restrictions.
As the Premier teases a potential reopening announcement later this week, the province now is rolling out new rebates to help small businesses with property tax and energy costs. This at a time when small business confidence has dropped to its lowest level since this pandemic began. According to new data from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, almost a quarter of business owners predict they would reduce full-time staff in the next 3 months, compared to just 16% who plan to hire.
3 in 10 say their business is in bad shape, while 29% estimate it's in good shape. Those numbers were reversed back in December when 19% said their business was in bad shape and 39% said their business was in good shape. So for reaction, we welcome back to CP24 tonight 2 Toronto small business owners, Ginger Robertson, co-owner of the Edmund Burke and Off the Hook Fish Bar, and Gulshan Alibai, owner of Lahore Tikka House in Little India. Thanks to both of you for being here. Ginger, I'll start with you. What's your assessment of this data from CFIB? I mean, how confident are you feeling about your restaurants at this point in the pandemic?
Well, I mean, we all know the story. Most restaurants are close to $200,000 in debt, taking on loans. Opening and closing us 4 times in 2 years, that's an enormous expense. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes for a restaurant and a bar. We've had spoiled food, enormous amounts of inventory gone. We were capped at 50% right before the holidays, which is the busiest month for most restaurants. And every single one of our Christmas parties canceled, and we were stocked up for that. We didn't get notice as usual. And now these, supports are announced, and most of this money won't be seen until February. So we have to close and open on a dime, but the support will come way too late for many businesses.
Gulshan, the last time we heard from you on CP24, Chanel stopped by your restaurant when this announcement was made, and you were talking about having to cut staff at Lahore Tikka House. What is the situation for you now?
Well, I just had one of my staff call me yesterday, and she goes, how am I going to survive on $300 a week? I mean, I need to come back to work. And I'm had to tell her, I'm sorry, I can't do anything. You're just going to have to get the lockdown support. My staff are really, really in dire straits. And it's a human toll that this is taking on us. I'm grateful for the supports, but the human toll, the cost of the human toll is far beyond.
So let's talk about some of the support that Ginger mentioned. Gulshan, the province now announcing a new rebate on property taxes. I know when I spoke to you, this was a huge concern. So how helpful will this new support be for you?
Well, I totally agree with the other speaker right now, where it's going to be too late. I mean, these supports probably won't roll until February. There's a whole application process. I'm blessed. I do have a bookkeeper and accountant that can do this for me, but I really worry about those little mom and pop, restaurants that don't have the infrastructure that I do, that don't have the accountants and knowing how to navigate and try to apply for these supports. I worry about that. And again, it's like, it's just putting a tape on a big wound, right? It's going to sustain for a little while, but you know what? We're still increasing debt month after month, and this has been going on for 2 years, so it's just not happening today. We're just trying to catch up from 2 years ago.
Ginger, I hear you on those Christmas parties that had to be canceled and the efforts that restaurants have to go to make that happen and then have to throw it all out. When you think about these rebates on property tax, on energy costs, that dollar figure, how does that compare to how much you had to put into and waste for those Christmas parties in the last 2 years of the pandemic?
Well, like take the property taxes, for instance. Most of that is like enveloped in your rent. Good luck getting landlords to separate that and show you their bills and what they actually pay. It, like, once again, they've made every single one of these measures super complicated, especially for the small mom and pop shops. I'm also blessed. I have a really good accountant who, it wasn't cheap, but has helped us navigate all these, applications and complicated processes to get any of this money. But like, I read some of the relief measures to some of my neighbors and smaller businesses in the community, and most of them were like, I don't even, what is that? I don't know what that is. How does that help me? Deferring payments, interest-free, kicking the can down the road isn't helping anyone. The grant is great, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to that's most people's rent in this city. So that covers 1 month's rent if we're lucky, and we already lost a ton of revenue in December, got shut down, and when they open us up again, it's going to be 50%, and they're going to make us close at 11, even though there's no data, and it's not, backed up by science that closing at 11 curbs the spread of COVID.
And I want to pick up on that point about opening and closing and all of this chaos it's caused. When you look at the fine print, Ginger, you mentioned this can be confusing for folks who are reading this at home. When I looked at it, it said very specifically that this repaying is specific to costs incurred by the closures. So I think the question to you, Gulshan, would be, is that enough? Does that really cover this, all of the costs that I guess you would incur to open and close? You might be losing staff and then rehiring staff. You might be losing food. What does that look like?
Exactly. I don't even know what to do next week. Do I call my staff in, not call them in? Do I tell my suppliers, please get these supplies ready for me? We just don't know it. And that's the uncertainty that is so stressful of not knowing. And as a business person, it's all about planning. I mean, that's how you run business as an entrepreneur. It's all about planning. And right now, that's an area that we have no idea what to do next. So it's been very, very difficult in that regard.
Ginger, is there something that you would like to see some level of government offer that hasn't been put out there yet that could help you right now?
The grants help enormously. If the federal government could forgive more of the loans that they gave us, at the beginning of the pandemic, I don't even know how anyone is going to be able to pay that back. Honestly, I don't. This government has had 2 years to do the right thing, and they haven't. Closing bars and restaurants has never curbed the spread of COVID. At the time we were locked down on January 3rd, there were 3 outbreaks of COVID in restaurants. There were over 300 in long-term care. That number in long-term care jumped to over 700 outbreaks after we were closed. This iron ring that was supposed to be put around long-term care never happened. Bill 124 capping nurses at 1% for the next 3 years. These are the people who were separated from their own families to provide care for Ontarians. These are the people that held up cell phones so people could say goodbye to their loved ones. It's not our job to bolster the healthcare system. This is the job of the government, and this is how you curb the spread of COVID-19. More than 50% of the people that are in the hospital right now didn't go in with COVID. They got it while they were there because nurses still don't have proper PPE. Stop throwing small businesses under the bus. We are done. There's a reason why 1 in 3 Ontarians, don't think he's doing a good job. The latest polls just came out. He's got to figure this out. It's about time.
So, Ginger, now we're hearing the Premier sort of hinting that we could see this announcement coming later on this week about some loosened restrictions. How are you preparing your restaurants for this? I mean, how much lead time do you need to order food and rehire staff?
I mean, they're waiting, they're ready, but I bring them back, and then 2 weeks later, the numbers go up, schools opened, there's, some correlations happening in the background. And then I have to lay them off again. You don't know the toll that's taken on us. You can't imagine.
No, we can't, Ginger. We do appreciate you sharing it with us tonight, though. Gulshan, final thought here. If the Premier is hinting that there could be something changing down the road, how does that impact you? How do you prepare?
Well, I hope it's the last time and I won't have to prepare anymore, because I just don't think we can sustain this any longer. You know, I mean, I don't think we're going to be standing any longer. This has to be the last time. And I think where the money is well spent, instead of paying all the businesses, they need to put more infrastructure into the healthcare system and create more beds. I think that's what needs to happen, rather than closing down businesses. Take that money that you're giving us as supports as just Band-Aid, and take that money and put it into healthcare where it's actually needed. And that way you won't have to keep on closing the small businesses and restaurants every time the numbers go up. Put the money in infrastructure in the hospitals.
And we're hearing from frontline workers that we should put them in human beings too to staff those beds. Gulshan Alibai and Ginger Robertson, we appreciate both of you so much, and we wish you all the best going forward.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.